Hello and welcome to part 2 of Reflective Journal. I hope that's made you feel a little bit upbeat and ready to go. This little PowerPoint presentation won't be half as long as the other one because you've got all your foundations now and your grounding. This is called your reflective part. This is about you. I'm going to tell you how I want these answers, and then you have to do a lot of soul searching. This is where your journal has come into play. So I really hope you were filling out some of the tasks that you were doing. And if you don't have enough information to finish this question, it doesn't need to be handed in until really the end of the course, because we normally do this at the end, so you've gathered enough information. But I do think that 90% of you will be able to fill out this information. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to answer the next couple of questions with his examples about culture, examples of communication, examples of leadership, coaching, and mentoring. This part of the assessment is the biggest part. It's weighed the most percentages, and it's a lot about you reflecting on it. So it's the part that will take you the longest to answer, have the heftiest amount of writing, but it will be the shortest presentation from me. Okay, let's get into it. Little bit of reflection here. So what is culture? Now, a lot of people think of culture as purely as religion. It's not, okay? Culture adapts to many different habits, societies, lifestyles, and so forth. So we're going to look at some slides, and I want you to reflect on how these people's lifestyles and cultures, what it means to you, and would you adapt to them, and how could you adapt to them? Let's give yourself a scenario, the same scenario for everyone. You are going into a new client's house and you see what you're going to see in this slide, or you're surrounded by these slides. How are you going to change yourself, like an actress or actor, to adapt to their lifestyle, to make you feel welcome, and to get the most out of your client? You've already done this. It's just now going to get your brains thinking. Okay, there's 2 slides there. Have a look at the 2 photos there I've got down there. They're both family orientated and friends orientated, but they are very different. If you were to walk into this environment, your attitude, your persona, your personality, your communication style would be extremely different than walking into this environment. Okay, you could not walk into this environment shouting, raising, hyperactive, talking about the game last Saturday, and you could not walk into this environment expecting everybody to pray with you all at once. So already you're here in the middle. You're walking into this environment. You need to understand, when you go into someone's house, you have to change. You might not like it, okay, but you do. And we have to understand everybody's different culture. So this is their culture. They get all their mates round and they watch a game of some sort. They get together, they're rowdy, they're cheering, they're upbeat. And look, it goes from babies up to granddads, up to parents, you name it. There's some drinking, some not, but they're all having a good time and they're all focused on one particular culture, which is sport for them. This culture here is more low, more peaceful. They feel that maybe praying before certain events or praying whenever it might be in their culture is what makes them feel empowered, makes them feel to come together as a family. You might have to sit with them or be quiet for a certain amount of time. They might ask you to join in. If you join in, you just sit there and wait till they're finished with a nice smile on your face. So different cultures on there and how you would change your culture. This may have happened to you. This may be one of your answers. So let's go to the next slide. There you go. Look at that. You can relate to that. Okay, different types of music. There's still music. Hey, but if you were to walk into this person's house, then walk into this person's house, you can see how your demeanor, your attitude might slightly change. This one, you have to respect family time. You'd have to respect children who are around. This one, you'd have to have a little bit of a guard up, maybe. There could be other things going on that you need to turn a blind to. Maybe, maybe not. It just might be that they like to be loud, boisterous. or not. It just might be that their image is different. Okay, so don't judge a book by its cover, but you can also see how your attitude might have to change slightly into two different environments. It's just their culture, and you have to go with it. This is a brilliant culture. I wish we were in class right now, and I think we're still going to do an hour on this because I learn every time we do this presentation. It's amazing. So I've learned a lot about particular Indian lifestyles. If you go into their home and you're looking after a family member, that's very privileged because normally families look after families. They may offer you food. If you don't accept that food, that's known as being rude and you could be frowned upon. I wasn't to know that. It's very interesting. The way they get together and enjoy their family life is around food. Maori is very similar to that as well. There are certain cultures where you have to, take your food, take your shoes off. Similar to ours as well, but it's a little bit more, they take your shoes and they give you a replacement of shoes. So we're going to learn a lot bit more about other people's cultures as we get back in the classroom. And I'm going to give you some tasks to do to go out there into industry and to friends and actually be front and be open and ask them about their culture. Here's a culture for us, probably for everyone in different ways. You get together with mates and you have a drink. It doesn't have to be out in a pub. It could just be getting together with neighbours, friends. But you can associate having a few drinks sometimes brings everyone together. Having food brings everyone together. But two different types of bringing people together. Everybody is right in what they do. Nobody is wrong. But everybody has their beliefs and likes. Bit similar to the first one, I guess. But again, it's talking about culture, sport, and also relaxing mediation. I picked this particular one as well. It's because there's a female referee. Sometimes it used to be that male-dominated referee things, male-dominated sport, but you can see the culture is changing there and it's being very accepted. Meditation is starting to become more and more accepted. That's how people like to detox. People like to think clearly. People like to have their alone time. And it's okay. And there's different ways of meditating. It doesn't have to be sitting like that, cross-legged, does it? People could just be sitting reading a book outside a window. There's lots of different ways of meditating. And they're not all freaks. Okay, they are absolutely beautiful in their own right, and everybody has their own beliefs and their own culture, and we have to learn to accept everybody's. You're going to be healthcare assistants, maybe going into other people's homes, definitely communicating with everybody's different cultures, and you need to have your frame of mind that even if it's not your culture, it doesn't mean it's wrong and it doesn't mean you don't like it. You accept it, you embrace it, you learn about it, and you go with it. I'd love you to do this over the next couple of days, couple of weeks, talking with friends, relatives, going into your workplace, and asking about what's their culture. They might go straight to religion, so you have to teach them what culture means. You're not talking just about religion. You want to talk about what do they do every Saturday. Some of them go, oh, we have rugby every Saturday in the winter. That's their culture. Get up, rugby every Saturday because they have to play and they love it. Some might be, oh, I get up every morning and I walk my dog along the beach and I go this particular way. I come back, I make myself some eggs. They have a routine, which is also their culture that doesn't like to be broken. Some cultures are interests. It doesn't have to be hobbies. It could be that you're interested in it. Hobby might be playing rugby, but you might just actually not play it, but have that big interest and love it and follow it and know who's good and who's bad. So I want you to think of some cultures of yourself and also think of some cultures of someone very close to you or someone you know, and just reflect on that. What I really want you to do, and I do want to do this in class, is pick a culture that you are really unfamiliar with. Okay, you don't know anything about, you feel it might be rude to ask, all right? But you will find when you do ask, they are willing to share. And they are willing, if you tell them why you're asking, you want to learn, you want to better yourself as a healthcare assistant, you want to be able to get into those people's zones, when you are explaining this to someone's culture that you don't understand, they are willing to share, I promise you, and you will be blown away. The Asian culture, the Indian culture is different in different areas. The UK culture, and again, of course, the Maori and the Pacific Island culture. They all have different, I want to say the word rules. It's not quite rules, but it is different ways of lifestyle, which is fantastic. So, what I would really like you to do in your own time, it's not being assessed, it's for your knowledge. And we will share our experiences in class. Pick three things, pick one unfamiliar culture, one, then pick three things that you could learn or use to gain common ground to make your communication better. It's great. We'll do the next one in class as well. And we'll do the next one in class. So hopefully, and we will do some of this in class. Sorry, I keep repeating myself. I do want you to talk to someone that is, has a different culture to you. Okay, whether it is religion, whether it's ethnicity, and I want you to find out 2 or 3 things from them of how you can adapt your way of caring as a caregiver to make that person feel more valued. You're probably already doing it, all right? Some of your answers, some of your questions that we're going to ask you is, how have you had to adapt yourself to give the client better cares? Okay, so this is going to be one of your questions. So I just want you to start thinking about this. You can think about it in your own time. Otherwise, I'll be here for ages. I want you to go through these slides again by yourself. There is an option to pick full PowerPoints with no voiceover, with no instructions, and there are some links. Now, a lot of you know this because you've been brought up in New Zealand, but those that haven't been brought up in New Zealand, it's very, very new, but very important to learn. Having a look at these photos, I would say most of these photos is a no-no for everyone. It is a no-no. Shoes, sitting bums on tables, feet on desks or where you eat, and a urine pot on a bedside table is disgusting. There are many, many reasons for that, infection control, but in Maori culture and other cultures, it is so disrespectful, so disrespectful. But you won't understand that not everybody knows this. Okay, I'll give you a eye-opening experience that I had. I shouldn't share too much, but my beautiful father, who's 81, who lives with me, he comes in, and when he wants to sit down, he sits on my kitchen table, and I just sit there. I go white, I start sweating, and I have to explain to him, can you please not sit on my table and sit on the chair because I eat off that table? And his reaction is, oh, since when did you become a snob? He doesn't understand the New Zealand culture. In the UK, we'd go to school and we'd sit on our desks waiting for the teacher. Oh my God. I'm horrified now to think that I used to do that. But that was the UK culture. And it's awful. But hey, never take shoes off unless they were muddy. Never. It's education, isn't it? You can't blame them. And you can't shout at them. It's all education in a nice, soft manner. Share my little story. I want you to get your family involved, okay, or yourself. On the other PowerPoint, these are all links to cool little songs rather, and they're all head, shoulders, knee to toes, Maori words, key Maori words that you might get to using in the future. I've got a fantastic link here. I want you to hop on this link, and there are some body parts. So if you click on the link, there are body parts, nose, eyes, stomach, and then it has the Maori words, and you can click play so you can pronounce them correctly as well. It's valuable. It's valuable words, and when you do nursing, They expect you have a whole assessment on Maori words and talking Maori in for body parts as well. It's fantastic. You need to respect these elders and they need to feel respected. So we're going to get you discussing all these words when you come back to class, and we might get you doing heads and shoulders, knees and toes in Maori as well and have a bit of fun. People don't know facial communication as much as, well, yeah, we do. But sometimes we've got to be careful. Or sometimes we have to over exaggerate. With our elders, we might have to use a lot of body language, a lot of facial expressions, because they can't hear us. Full stop, they can't hear us. So we're going to go through appropriate and not appropriate. I want you doing it to yourself as well. So what's appropriate and not appropriate facial communication when you greet someone? All right. Hi, how are you today? Hi, how are you today? My name's Tracy. Okay, who are you going to get a response from? Okay, so the appropriate communication facially is light, bright. You could have just worked a 12-hour shift and you're going to see the grumpiest patient on your ward. Okay, you've got to go in there with that biggest smile on your face. Okay, and think of something that you're looking forward to going home to. A lot of carers, teachers, shop assistants, actually almost everybody in the industry that has to deal with customer service in some shape or form will have to act sometime or other. Put on a brave face, and please do. Next one, movement. Okay, you don't want to be turning your back and talking to your client because a lot of them rely on lip reading. All right, you don't want to be doing big movements. It might overwhelm them and scare them. Think of children. If you're in your faces, they're going to be, oh, get back. So you want to think of your body language, your large movements and your small movements as well. And we'll be assessing this when we do our practical as well. Oh, hand gestures and touch. Hand gestures are fantastic. Hi, how are you? Bye. No, not giving a kiss. That's only if it's for family. Now, when you're touching, you make sure you touch in appropriate areas. Okay, when you're rolling, you do have to have flat hands on the shoulder and on the hip. Okay, you don't want to be in their faces touching their chest. You do not want that arm curving over and touching their bottoms. Okay, you want to make sure that their sacred areas are sacred. We have failed people in the past for being overly touchy and definitely touchy in the wrong areas. If you're going to be touching someone's hair, you have to ask permission. And you do have to move their hair sometimes when you're using the slippery slam up the bed because you don't want them to catch their hair. You have to ask permission. It's tapu. It's a tapu area. So when you're now touching and talking and getting into people's spaces, you really need to think about, is that how close you would like someone to come to you? Are you too touchy-feely? You do need to be in front of them so they can see you eye to eye, not poking your head around a corner. And this will all come to light when you start transferring someone. When you're at the side of them, you might have to explain it first and tell them where you are going. You have to explain where you're putting your hands, okay? You really need to now be a little bit more observant of where you are touching and feeling. Sounds bad, but it happens. Writing and pictures. Now, if you're finding that someone can't hear you, ignoring you, they're over it. They can't hear you, so they're just going to be, well, what's the point? But they can't communicate with you. There is no harm in going in with pictures, okay? Or how are you feeling? You could have a nice sunny day with a smile on it. You could have rain and thunderstorms. What's your day you're feeling like today? Okay, get them pointing to it. There is no harm sharing pictures of what their interests are. This is not about communication, but it's about getting on their wavelength, isn't it? If someone was a train driver for years, get some old photos of an old train book. I don't know. You're breaking that communication down so you can get into their lifestyle. Written, they might not understand you. Write it down. Okay, get them to write it down. Printer's always better. Our writing's not always the best. Put it in capitals, put it large. Ask them to write it. So there's loads of communication here. Okay, technology, don't diss them. They know more than we know. It is hard for some, but always use technology. What technology we have used in the past is for translating. If you are looking after a client of a different ethnicity and they don't speak English, you have apps on your phone that they can talk into and it can translate for their needs. So if you're going into a home, get this app, download it. There's no harm in it. You're thinking outside the box. Okay, so think of all these ways that you can get effective, appropriate communication. If you see something inappropriate, it's worth understanding why it's inappropriate and discussing that. Right. The first 3 questions in your book, which are going to take a while, is you will see it's leadership, coaching, and mentoring examples. All right. So examples meaning I've started you off because people often say to me, I don't know where to start. I noticed an example of leadership when it could have been you were at a staff meeting, okay, and the manager was talking about, I want to say COVID-19, it's so relevant, or was talking about a client who had come unwell or was acceptable, was talking about a new client, is talking about whatever they might be talking about. I want you to reflect on that example and say, this leader had these qualities because they delegated certain jobs to certain members of staff. They communicated with us really, really well. We left the meeting knowing what we had to do. The leader knew its job and knew the processes. So a staff meeting with your manager, and as long as it was an effective one and a good one, is actually a really good example of leadership. That was me giving an example, but I want you to think now in your reflective journal, when have you seen leadership? Okay, get thinking about, remember those qualities and what those qualities mean, and when have you seen it? Now, it doesn't always have to be a good example. If you can't think of a good example and you've only got bad, say it. Okay, it's real life, it's your journal. And when you've said about this bad example of leadership, now you have the knowledge to reflect on that bad example and say what would have been good. Okay, so it's quite a hefty couple of paragraphs. Exactly the same for coaching and mentoring. Okay, so coaching is, when have you been taught something? Right? When have you actually had to be coached how to use something? And then you also might have an example of when you've actually had to coach someone how to do something. Broad. It's really broad. It could be down to coaching one of your fellow colleagues how to do an assessment, to coaching someone, hopefully in your work industry, on how to do a handover. How did you do that? Did you have effective communication? What about when you were coached? Did it go well? Did you feel like, I know this, I can go back to this person and ask? So now you've got the scaffolding. Find that example, write that real life example down. And I want you also to say a conclusion at the end, to say, my coaching example was really well. It had these qualities and I left feeling satisfied. Or there may be some mishaps. And you can then reflect to say, when I'm coaching in the future, I will make sure that I have blah, 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 blah. But there has to be an example, a real life example of when you've been coached or when you have coached someone. I hope this makes sense. It's just what you've done or been to in the past, and the same with mentoring. The next part is mentoring, same as the others as well. When have you been a mentor for someone? Someone's upset maybe, and for a short period of time or a long period of time at work, or when have you been able to go to someone? In work, out of work, colleague, friend, professional, it's up to you. If you can't think of anything, this may sound blasé, but it's not. Make it up. Okay, you may have watched a movie, The Untouchables. There's mentors in that. You can Google and YouTube a certain scenario and read about it so you understand a particular scenario. Okay, this is what we've just learned now. Different examples of when you have to adapt cultural communication styles. Okay, I got you to look at those slides. I got you to think of culture in general. I didn't, some were religious, some was ethnicity, some were hobbies, some were social environments, okay, some was music. So when you're talking to a client, when you're dealing with a client, when you've been going into a client's home, maybe, okay, when have you actually had to adapt your communication styles? When have you had to adapt your communication styles? There will be some times when someone else had to adapt to you. Like I know when I talk to a lot of our class members who are second language, I would do my best to slow down my talking because I talk fast and I want to adapt because I want to get the best out of everyone. Okay. But I want you to think wider. When have you learnt about a history of one of your clients and you know their interests and you've adapted your communication style, you've learnt about what they're interested in, so you can then get a relationship with this client. A little example, one basic example, you're probably all going to use this one basic example. I was looking after a Maori client. I learned about Maori lifestyles and their cultural beliefs. So when I go into my client, I now don't say, hello, Mr. John. I say, kia ora. And I will ask how he likes to be addressed. I will make sure every time I put food on the table, I ask him if I can put it on this table. I'll have to wipe it down first. I will make sure if I'm using any urinary or sanitary or any products that he goes under his bed straight into the sluice room, does not touch any of the table whatsoever. So you've learnt about their lifestyle and their beliefs, and you will adapt to it. Okay, you will learn Maori words. That's one example of how you've all definitely done that. I put $1 million, you can use this one example. But I want you to think of other cultural examples as well. If you really can't think of one, use John Jones. Sorry, it's not John Jones, it's Fred Denton. You know about Fred Denton from your case study. You know his lifestyle. You know he loves sports, and you know family is a really important time for him. If you were looking after Fred Denton, how would you strike communication and friendship with him? How would you do it? You'd talk about his grandson, what sports he plays. Yeah. When did he last play? You talk about your own. Get a rapport going. Okay, so that's you understanding their communication style. So here's some of the things I want you to think about. What the situation was. When you changed your communication styles and you adapted to their cultural needs, how did you do that? Then I want you to reflect on, yes, that went better than expected, or now I've got this communication going on, I'm going to go home and learn a bit more about this person's hobby, culture, needs. So when I go back in to look at that client, I am striking up a rapport and I'm going to get the best for this client. Okay. So get thinking, this is your life. This is what you've been doing. This is all through your work. You've always had to adapt and change without knowing it. But now I'm going to get you the right example. And when you reflect on your examples, I want you to dig deeper now. I'm going to get you to have the best rapport and get the best out of your clients as possible so you can make your tasks, your personal care's tasks, so easy for yourself. They're going to be willing. Get digging deep. This ain't going to take, this is not an overnight jobby. This will take a couple of days, okay, maybe weeks, all right? Get thinking every time now you're at work or not at work, or get your brains thinking. Go to your reflective journal, look at your tasks that you've done. Try and think when you did that task or when someone coached you in that task, use them as examples. Feel free to flick me drafts, okay? I'm just going to quite a lot of detail. Go into detail using those qualities that you learnt in the last PowerPoints. Have fun! Boo! How do I stop this?